Hey guys, welcome back to 428 Shibuya Scramble. This is TJ Gamer Girl signing on. So, last episode, we ended up getting a keep out on Achi and Osawa. Which is a little actually, Kano, Achi, and Osawa all ended up with a keep out. And Minorikawa is the only one we haven't started with this current block. So, that tells me that he might have some importance. Or at least he's able to unlock the keep outs that we got. The TV news continued to report on how Mamoru Tanaka had been killed in the minivan explosion. What does this mean? Oh, that was Chiaki. Chiaki blinked in confusion. I mean, Hana told us herself that the van explosion was her father committing suicide, didn't she? The only explanation I could think of, Minorikawa replied, is that Hana was lying. He scratched his head as he considered the situation. But why? Chiaki said. Ozu let out a snort. Well, it would seem Mr. Toyama had her lie in order to deceive us. What an upstanding individual, using his own daughter to buy himself some time. Minorikawa wanted to yell at the guy, but he managed to hold his tongue. The important thing was that Toyama was still alive. And if he was still alive, then there was still a way to save Heaven Publishing. They'd get the current issue out on time, with a big scoop waiting in the wings for the issue after that. From there on out, it should be smooth sailing. Well, no matter, Ozu said. Seeing that Mr. Toyama isn't dead after all, we'll just wait for him here. He sat back down on the sofa. But Segawa leaned threateningly toward Chiaki. Hey, he snarled. You sure you don't know where the guy's hiding out? I don't, Chiaki shot back. And even if I did, I'd never tell you. Say what now? He leaned in even closer, and she just stood on her tiptoes in defiance. And their foreheads collided with a dull thud. God, Chiaki, you really got brave. Both reeled back, clutching their heads in their hands. Just calm down, Chiaki, Minorikawa said as he began rooting through Toyama's desk. For now, I'm going to look for clues to where Toyama might have gone. You just focus on working on your own article. Oh, Ozu raised an eyebrow. Getting all cooperative all of a sudden, I see. I want to change up the plan for the next month's issue. And I can't do that without the editor-in-chief's approval. What Minorikawa was actually looking for, however, was a back issue of 4-Star General Gossip. He was pretty sure the article on Osawa had been printed in the magazine's inaugural issue. If he could find that scandalous piece that the scientist had asked for, he'd also be able to get his big lead about the power balance of the world being at stake. And if we could get that, not only would next month's issue be a sure thing, it was a good bet that sales figures would go through the roof. He found an article folder full of early material and quickly flipped through it. It didn't take him long to find the article. Floundering Okushi Pharmaceutical arranges marriage of political convenience. The large headline practically jumped off the page. Minorikawa was quick to read over the story. The basic gist of it was this. The corporate director of Okushi Pharmaceutical had sacrificed his daughter in order to keep a researcher named Kenji Osawa on board. The daughter, however, had previously been dating another man. That must be what Osawa wanted him to look into. The guy his wife had been dating before they were married. Should be easy enough to just ask whoever had written the article. Minorikawa's gaze jumped up to the end of the piece, looking for the writing credit. The piece had been written by Toyama himself. Hey, ain't you done yet? Segawa yelled. Tell us where Toyama is already. Yeah, Minorikawa thought. We're gonna need to do something about these guys. I'm still looking into it, he said. Just hold on. He made a show of opening and closing various desk drawers. The drawers themselves were packed with a jumbled mess of electrical and gas bills. Noodle house delivery menus and, Look faster, Segawa growled. Maybe he could mollify this guy by having some noodles delivered for dinner. That's an interesting thought. Hey, you guys hungry? I was thinking of ordering some soba. Man, this ain't no time for that. Besides, we just had some soba anyhow. And, it was awful. Don't talk to me about noodles. Seigo launched into a shadowboxing session, as if trying to punch out the provider of his disappointing soba. The guy clearly had zero capacity for sitting still. Minorikawa had found the back issue of the gossip he was looking for. He still needed Chiaki's article, though, and she wasn't quite finished yet. He had to buy some more time. By the way, he said to Seigo, "Are you familiar with SOS?" SOS? The dog paused mid-jab. Yeah, SOS. I was planning on interviewing them later today. Hear there's some pretty tough guys. Only one of them who'd be able to give me a fight would probably be the Achiendo. Except as I hear it, he's left the game. Uh-huh, really now. Heard anything else interesting? Sounds like nowadays they're being run by some game named Susumu. The name Susumu rang a bell. Those two young punks who had been arguing after the van explosion had mentioned him. It seems like SOS is in a pretty rough state since Aji left, though, Seigo added. Minorikawa didn't miss a beat. What do you mean, rough state? Back in the day, they were all goody two-shoes, never shake folks down or steal or any of that stuff. Guess their founder Achi hated that sort of thing. But now that he's out, a lot of rough and tumble, hot-blooded types have been signing up with them. Smart move is not to get involved with SOS nowadays, really. Hard to find a scarier bunch around here, when there's a lot of them together. And their main hangout, that's the Inferno, yeah? Yeah, over in Uraharajuku. Known as Urahara, for short. The area east of the Japan Rail Harajuku Station, around where Takeshita Dori meets Meiji Dori. There are many small clothing and accessory stores here, set up in renovated houses. Most of these shops are on the cutting edge of youth fashion, offering quirky and unique means of personal expression. Man, you've been listening out on the streets? What gives? Uraharajuku, huh? Minorikawa smiled to himself. Inferno's location had practically fallen into his lap. Suddenly, Seigo's eyes went wide. Aha! So that's where Toyama is! Wait. Nah, no way a coward like him would go to a place like that. Chiaki looked up from her keyboard. Look, can you please shut up? No, you shut up! Okay, children! That's my phone. Minorikawa pulled on his cell out of his pocket. It was Toyama's name on the incoming call screen. Minorikawa's heart skipped a beat. Toyama, where are you? He blurted as he picked up. Chiaki, Ozu, and Seigo turned to look at him at once. Well, what were you thinking, faking your death like that? Even if we could fill those pages and postpone repayment, all of it would do was delay the inevitable. I'd still be up to my ears in debt. So I thought if I made it look like I was dead. Minorikawa let out an exasperated sigh. Well, everyone already knows you're still alive. So our little attempt at subterfuge didn't even wind up buying you time. What? Toyama's hysterical squeak was painful to hear. Alright, listen up, Minorikawa said. If it's the debt you're worried about, you'll be able to pay that back real soon. What do you mean? I've landed a huge scoop. You could do a print run of 1 million copies and still sell out, if we can run it as an article. Toyama perked right up. Wait, you really mean it? I'll give you all the details. Just get your butt back here. But are those loan sharks there at the office right now? Fine, then I'll come to you. Tell me where you are. The two thugs crowded nearer, predatory gleam in their eyes, and Minorikawa had a flash of inspiration. Got it, he said quickly before Toyama could respond. Miyashita Park. I'm on my way now. Don't go anywhere. Ozu and Seigo grinned at one another, then bolted out the door. Minorikawa said as her footsteps receded. Those guys took the bait. I sent them to Miyashita Park. He allowed himself a cocksure grin. Right then. So, where are you really, Toyama? You imbecile! Oh no, he's at Miyashita Park! I am at Miyashita Park! What? Minorikawa fought the urge to pull his hair out. What the hell are you doing in some place like that? Why the hell did you tell him Miyashita Park? I thought it would be a clever ruse. Well, it wasn't! This is no time to be fighting, Chucky butted in. Yeah, you're right, Minorikawa scowled. Anyway, Toyama, those guys are headed your way. We need you to get out of there and go someplace we can talk. I can meet you there. Right, okay. They needed someplace safe and public where they could speak freely. Someplace where the staff wouldn't be overly nosy. But where? The noodle house? Recalling the noodle house from the menu he'd seen earlier, he opted up for that. Dogen hot, huh? Toyama rumbled the words under his breath. What's the matter? Is there some problem with that? No. Alright, I'll meet you there. It's over in Dogenzaka. The address is on the menu. He hung up, and Minorikawa quickly gathered his belongings. Chucky, how's that copy coming along? Well, almost done? Just a little more, I think. Alright, bring your computer and come with me. I'll read over what you got so far. Minorikawa waited as Chucky got ready to head to the cafe. I didn't pick cafe. As the two were heading out of the office, however, someone else opened the door. You've got 14 minutes and 57 seconds left to send to press. 56. 55. A slender man with a gaudy necklace entered the room and sat down on the nearest desk, staring physically at his pocket watch. Minorikawa narrowed his eyes dubiously. Who the hell are you? Always make sure to show up 15 minutes ahead of the appointed time. That's just common decency. The man gave no indication he'd even heard Minorikawa's question. I suppose I could wait here, he continued, just for another 14 minutes and 20 seconds. Mr. Mino? Is this guy talking about our submission? Chucky stared doubtfully at the newcomer. Hey, you, Minorikawa asked. You from the printer? But the man didn't reply. Don't ignore me! Are you from the printer? Still, the man remained silent. Minorikawa was furious. Look, cut the crap, he roared. In response, the man quietly reached into his suit pocket and pulled out his business card. My name is not Hey You. He handed the card to Minorikawa. It read, Trode Nippon Printing Co., Ltd., Sales Department, Division Number 1, Koichiro Katayama. I am Koichiro Katayama, newly assigned to Heaven Publishing. Pleasure to meet you. My predecessor is in the hospital due to a car accident. Sacho Usui, 39, single, longtime veteran and Trode Nippon Printing, rather timid by nature. The strain of dealing with publishers makes him sick to his stomach. Around 1:10 p.m. earlier today, while driving to meet with one of his clients, he had to swerve around a young man and woman who darted into the street. Oh no. I think that was when Achi and Hitomi caused the traffic jam to prolong Stanley and Kano. Yep, I knew it. He should make a complete recovery in about 2 months. Well, what are you doing here, Katayama? Minorikawa asked. I thought we had until 8 o'clock to complete proofreading. 8 o'clock? Surely you must be joking. Our company's proofreading deadline is 5:30. Katayama stared physically back at Minorikawa. Now that has to be a joke. I heard from the editor-in-chief that it was 8 o'clock. I take that to mean, then, that you don't have any copy for us. It's not that we don't have it, Minorikawa said. It's just not finished yet. Just hold on until 8. Katayama raised an eyebrow. No. Publisher and printer need to work in concert. Perhaps my predecessor was the sort of delay the proofreading deadline owing to your circumstances here. But now I'm in charge, and I do not make exceptions. The proofing deadline is 5:30. Sharp. And I intend to keep it that way. And while we've been having this discussion, you're down to 12 minutes and 32 seconds. Katayama held out his pocket watch as if to emphasize the point. That's ridiculous, Minorikawa exclaimed. Just who the hell do you think you are? You guys are going to be printing a paper that I wrote. Do you even know how lucky that makes you? So just wait, okay? Just give us... Just give us till we're done. Who knows? We could be done early. Just give us until 8 o'clock. That was the original understanding. It was unfair to change it now. 8 o'clock, And where's your guarantee that you'll finish by then? We will! Just trust me! I'm supposed to heedlessly trust the word of a man I've just met? Katayama mused. We're down to 10 minutes and 46 seconds, by the way. You son of a bitch! Don't get all high and mighty just because you work for the printer! High and mighty? I say it's the people on the publishing side of the things that act high and mighty. Whatever high-minded claims you might make, without us, we'd have nothing to put on store shelves. Forgetting that and blithely ignoring your proofreading deadline makes for more work on our end. Just what are you getting at, I wonder? Now it's 10 minutes and 20 seconds. Minorikawa ground his teeth so hard he could hear it. His usual tactics were useless here. Katayama was simply too unflappable to be browbeaten. If he backed down now, though, it was game over. 10 minutes and 7 seconds remaining. I realize there's little point, but I'll wait until the designated time. That's just common decency. Katayama's eyes were once again locked on his pocket watch. It was no use. Minorikawa couldn't find a way to talk this guy around. Jackie held her hand up. May I say something? Isn't it also common decency not to break a promise once it's been made? If you're referring to the 8 o'clock deadline, I was not the one who promised that. Maybe not, but I believe your predecessor's responsibilities become your responsibilities. Katayama crossed its arms and gave her a bemused look. What's your name, miss? Jackie, she said bashfully. Jackie Iso. The printer's expression brightened visibly. Good. That timid hesitation of yours is just splendid. You have none of the arrogance so typical among publishers. Huh? Jackie was taken rather aback. In deference to your polite demeanor, I shall wait until 7 o'clock. That is the latest I can possibly allow. All right, Minorikawa shouted practically in Katayama's face. We agree to those terms. No, I wasn't talking to... But we've got terms of our own. Katayama reeled ever so slightly. I'm not certain you're in any position to set terms here. Just shut up and listen. From here on out, you're coming with us. Why? We're going to finish up our copy on site, then burn the data into CD and hand it over to you there. That's why. Katayama let out a sign of resignation. Oh, very well. I suppose I'd simply be waiting here anyway. Minorikawa pumped his fists in victory. Alright, Jackie, go and copy the DTP data we've got so far onto your computer. Sure thing, Mr. Mino. Jackie quickly set about copying the data from the editing department's desktop. Okay, done. Then let's go. With the others in tow, Minorikawa headed for the noodle house where Toyama would be waiting. Smug-ass little bastard! The sub restaurant Dogen Hut was roughly halfway up Dogenzaka. Inside, they encountered the proprietress near the door. She held a massive cleaver for cutting soba noodles clutched in one hand. Toyama wasn't there. Excuse me, Minorikawa said. Has a middle-aged man come by your shop? Name's Toyama. The proprietress let out a weary sigh. That guy, huh? You folks know him? Yes, that's right. Then I'm sorry. I didn't want to have to do this. It was all his fault, though. You reap what you sow. Minorikawa didn't know what she was going on about, but suddenly he had a very bad feeling. So then, Toyama was here? He asked cautiously. Yes, he came by. Well, where is he now? Please tell me. No, I have no obligation to tell anything to friends of Toyama's. Did I make a bad decision? This is my fault, then. Evidently, there was some bad blood between Toyama and this woman. The real victim here is me. Her voice rose abruptly into a roar. Now listen up good to this old woman's story. I don't have time for this, Minorikawa thought. He needed to find Toyama as soon as possible. But instead, it looked like he'd be stuck hearing out this angry woman first. Alright, we're listening. Tell us your story. It's a long one. The woman's mouth twisted up and she licked her lips, leaning in to tell her tale. Long, long ago, when I was still in my 20s, I would often make deliveries to Heaven Publishing. They were some of my best customers. Back then, we were so busy my employees practically worked themselves to death. Oh geez, I just noticed Minorikawa's reflection in the knife. That is actually terrifying. You see, Dogen Hut had the finest soba in Japan, and our spokesmodel was considered one of the most beautiful girls in the world. Back when this woman was in her 20s, Heaven Publishing hadn't even existed yet. But Minorikawa figured he better not correct her. That would probably just piss her off and make her stop entirely. He kept his mouth shut and listened to her silly tale. But anyway, that's all in the past now. As time went on, we had a lot of delivery customers asking us to put their bills on their tab. Oh, dear. Okay, I feel like I should switch to the cafe. So much that it became a problem, and we changed our policy to disallow that sort of thing. But the fine folks of Heaven Publishing considered themselves an exception to that rule. And that put my part-timer Masa, who does the deliveries, in a bit of a bind. Okay? Oh, Masa's a student at Midoriyama Academy. He took the day off to go on a date with his girlfriend. I hear they're planning to compete as a couple in some ice cream eating contest that's going to air on TV. So they were going to do a practice run together today. Honestly, how ridiculous is this? Okay, I think I should... I'm going to pick the cafe instead. Oh man. I'm so curious to see where that would go though. Yep. Cafe it is. Cafe it is. The woman ratted him out. Oh, that's just completely gone now. I just know the waitress is gonna be pissed off. They reached Cafe Lotre without incident, and Minorikawa promptly spotted the publisher. Over here, Toyama hissed, eyeing his surroundings with obvious unease. Hana sat by his side, sullenly sipping on some juice. The waitress came over as Minorikawa joined them. May I take your order? She asked. Water. Just water, sir? Fine, make it a double. Exasperated, the waitress headed back to the kitchen. Toyama looked over at Katayama. Who's this guy? I'm Koichiro Katayama from Cho Nippon Printing. Katayama presented his business card. Toyama turned to Minorikawa with a quizzical look. What's someone from the printer doing with you? I'll explain later. There's no time for that right now, Minorikawa replied. First, I need you to answer some questions. Does the name Kenji Osawa ring any bells? Osawa? Toyama closed his eyes and thought. He heads up a laboratory at Okashi Pharmaceutical. That was Minorikawa. You ran a piece on him in the first ever issue of 4-Star General Gossip. Toyama's face lit up with recognition. Ah, yes, the political marriage piece. Yeah, that one. Do you remember the details from that article? Of course. Who do you think I am? Toyama puffed himself up proudly. I used to be a local news copy editor from the Central Times. I've got the details for all the stuff I've ever covered here in my head. In that case, do you know who Kenji Osawa's wife was dating before they got married? Toyama blinked his eyes vacantly. Hey, what's the matter? Minorikawa asked. This is a pretty tough pop quiz you're giving me. Surprise, kids! It's time for a science quiz. What colorless, odorless gas, lighter than air, and used for consumer and municipal gas applications, is also known as marsh gas or swamp gas? Helium, ethylene, propane, or methane? Colorless, odorless gas. Lighter than air and used for... That sounds like propane, but I could be wrong. Cut the crap, man. You just said you have all the details inside your head. Oh, they're in there all right. They're just not coming out. Minorikawa slumped. Mr. Toyama, please. Whether or not you'll be able to pay off your debts depends on your memory here. Hearing this, Hana cast a cold glare up at her father. Alright, I can remember. Or I can at least try. Toyama folded his arms and hummed to himself. His gaze turned inward. So... I feel like it was a really common name. Sato! Chiaki chirped. Yamada! Was it either of those? They're pretty common names. But Toyama shook his head. Minorikawa offered a guess of his own. Tanaka. No, not that. It was something else. Just then the television inside the cafe switched over to do a news report on the Shibuya explosion. The remains of the individual discovered within the minivan itself, who has since been identified as pharmaceutical company executive Mamoru Tanaka. Mamoru Tanaka? Toyama, I just said it was Tanaka, you dingbat! Was it the Mamoru part that I needed to say? An image of the victim's face appeared on the screen. What? The publisher blurted, nearly falling out of his seat. That's it! It was him right there! Mamoru Tanaka! That's what I said! Tanaka! Toyama pointed excitedly at the TV screen. That's who Kenji Oso's wife was dating before they got married! Mamoru Tanaka! Minorikawa felt himself getting goosebumps. The victim of the terrorist bombing in Shibuya was also linked to the researcher who was key to a terrorist viral scare. His reporter's hunch was now a certainty. Right now, Shibuya was at the center of some massive conspiracy. This went far beyond even a major scoop. Mr. Toyama, we need to make sure that next month's issue hits shelves. Minorikawa called up Kenji Osoa to let him know the results of his little investigation. Okay, there's the jump to get rid of Osoa's keep out. The man didn't seem terribly surprised. Probably he had his suspicions all along. Osoa told him that there was something he needed to do before he was ready to give details on the big scoop, but then he would call back later. In the meantime, Minorikawa knew he'd have his hands full getting the current issue of the gossip wrapped up for the 7 o'clock deadline. He slapped his hands down on the table. Alright, emergency editing meeting right here, he announced. We need to get a lead on the Shibuya terrorist bombing into the next issue. The article about the twins winning the beauty contest can be dropped for that. We'll use the info from Kenji Osoa as the basis for our big scoop in the issue after that. Mr. Toyama, any problems with that? No, that should be fine. But what about the remaining pages for next month's issue? Minorikawa opened the file on his computer. The layout built in the DTP came up on the monitor. The report on the Burning Hammer sales demo, the surveillance camera opinion piece, the interview with Arai, those 3 were finished, and the copy already incorporated into the layout. Once Chiaki's street interviews piece was loaded in, that one could be checked off as well. Chiaki, how's your copy coming along? I'm sorry, I just need a little bit longer. The writing seemed to be giving her a fair bit of trouble. The article on SOS was still just a placeholder in the layout, and Minorikawa hadn't gotten any material for that, putting it even further behind than Chiaki's street interviews. Still, he'd at least learned when Shibuya's legendary street gang made their hideouts. He just had to take the risk of dropping in on them unannounced to ambush them with some interview questions. And then there was the lead-in for Shibuya bombing. That wasn't even the layout yet. It was a completely blank slate. Against all odds, they were going to need to put that put that article together from nothing with just an hour and change. It was an impossible amount of work for just him and Chiaki to do. Well. And how are things coming along? Katayama rose and came closer, trying to peer at the monitor. Minorikawa hurried to cover the screen. Don't look. If the printer rep saw the blank pages, he might decide to stop waiting. Would you mind telling me roughly what % of the total you have completed thus far? What %? Come off it, man. We're at 100%. If you're 100% done, then that implies you're all finished. Could I please have the data? No. I'm saying our willpower is at 100%. I'm not even going to pretend I understand what you mean by that. Shaking his head, Katayama sat back down in his chair. Minorikawa, Toyama asked, his expression uneasy. So I know I asked before, but why is someone from the printer here again? Katayama promptly chimed in. The long and short of it is that your proofing deadline has been changed to 7 o'clock, he said. What? But that's impossible! Who's doing the lead-in for the Shibuya bombing? Toyama eyed Minorikawa and then Chiaki. Both stared back non-committedly. It really is impossible. We'll never meet the deadline. We don't have enough people. No, we do have enough. Minorikawa thrust out his finger. Mr. Toyama, you're going to write that one and handle the layout. What? Heaven Publishing is your company. Won't you step up in order to protect it? Toyama hung his head. Even if I headed to the scene right now, I'm sure the other outlets have already gotten their coverage. I wouldn't be able to find anything new to write about. Oh, his turn to get punched. Katayama is just like, oh, for heaven's sake. And so you're just going to give up. A moment later, Toyama was on the floor and Minorikawa glaring down at him. You've always said you wanted to tell the world about the things the mass media can't or won't write about. So what the hell difference does it make that they've already gotten sound bites thereafter? Minorikawa's voice was raw with emotion. Don't you dare give up. Not that easily. Get your ass out there. Find something that only you can write about. Minorikawa. Toyama began to object. Then he glanced over at Hana. There was an imploring look in her eyes as well. I get what you're saying, Toyama grumbled. But still, you're expecting a lot. But then, despite his words, he flashed a broad grin. Yeah, Minorikawa let out a quiet chuckle. And it's got you all fired up. Yeah, I'm fired up, alright. Toyama's face shone with the resolve Minorikawa hadn't seen in a long time. There we go. That's the Toyama I know. You know, I'm really sorry. Now I see the huge burden I put on you. But damn it, it's going to be alright. Getting to his feet, Toyama took his daughter by the hand and strode boldly out of the cafe, looking like a changed man. Minorikawa watched them go, glad the dithering was over. Even if Toyama was still in his prime, he'd be cutting it close to do that article in an hour. But he would pull through somehow. When it came to taking care of Hana, the man would rise to see the occasion again and again. Father and daughter disappeared into the crowd, hand in hand. Minorikawa shook himself out of his reverie. Alright, he cried. Despite the clear blue sky, an unexpected gust of wind blew across his cheek. Come on, guys, we gotta get going too. Things might look grim, but he wasn't going to give up until the bitter end. It was time to head to the SOS hangout, Inferno. And that's where I'm going to end this episode. We'll continue on the next one. Till then, this is the Gamer Girl, signing off.